Hello, and welcome to Sustainability Marketing Lecture 8 on Communications, Episode 1 on Communications Media. This is part of our examination of the sustainability marketing mix within the total sustainability marketing management process. Communications is a very large and complex subject. It's something that operates at two levels within commercial marketing. Partly it works within the level of a total company and their corporate communication strategy. And also we have communications very much at the level of sustainability solutions, the particular brands or products or services that companies deliver to customers. For the most part of this lecture, we'll be talking about communications at the sustainability solutions level, talking about particular brands and products and services. We'll begin by talking in this episode about communications media. In the second episode, we'll look at sustainability marketing messages. And then finally, in episode 3, we'll look at a case study of the social enterprise Global Ethics and their brand One Water, and the way in which they use communications in a very holistic and innovative way for a young brand trying to break into a very difficult market. There'll be two learning outcomes for this particular episode. The first one, exploring why marketing communications in particular has often been a focus for criticism of marketing in relation to sustainability issues. And secondly, think about the different types of media that sustainability marketers can use to reach and communicate with customers. In terms of the structure of the episode, we'll begin by looking at some of the contrasting views of marketing communications. We'll have a look at the marketing communication process. Then we'll look at the communication aims that marketers may try and fulfill with their communications efforts. And finally look at particular types of marketing media and how they work within sustainability marketing. To begin with, how communication is viewed by marketers and by society more generally. The conventional view that marketers have always tried to prefer in talking about advertising in particular and marketing communications more generally is that really it's a relatively neutral force within society. That it's like a mirror. It reflects back to us how we are, who we are, how we live our lives, maybe the type of lifestyles that we aspire to. So conventionally, marketing tends to feel that marketing communications doesn't really change society or shape society in any way. It just helps us really to make things like choices between particular brands or particular products. Advertising in particular is the highest profile marketing communications media, and much of the controversy that exists within marketing tends to be focused around advertising and its impacts. I think many people in the world generally, when they talk about marketing, the first thing they think about is advertising and the extent to which it does have some impact or influence on our lives. And during the 1980s, a debate arose really that was very critical of advertising and its social effects in particular, based around work like marketing academics like Richard Polley and others who talked about really advertising not so much being a mirror that reflected back society to us, but as a distorted mirror that gave an unrealistic view of society and us as consumers and how we live our lives, which tended to promote things like overconsumption, stereotypical images of people, and was leading really to a relatively homogenized global culture. In 2011, WWF, working with the consultancy PIRC, did a review of the evidence on advertising's effect on society. And it did say, well, the evidence wasn't conclusive. You couldn't prove that advertising was bad for us. But what they found was there was evidence that suggested quite strongly that the effect of advertising was often pernicious. It was tended to give us unrealistic images of the world that we live in, the aspirations that we might be able to have as consumers, and often tending really to disappoint us, that we felt when we buy a product or take advantage of a service, the benefits are not the kind of wonderful things we see in the world of advertising. There was also concern about the types of images that are used in certain areas of marketing. For example, marketing to children, the marketing of toys, for example, the marketing of junk food, that we're tending to sort of promote images and products to children that are not necessarily very good for them. Similarly, the use of highly sexualized images in the marketing of clothing, again, has raised concerns about the effect that advertising is having on society, on our values and the way we live our lives. So overall, advertising has certainly been subject for criticism. And there's another interesting point in terms of sustainability and a focus on a quality of life perspective, which is who advertising reaches. Advertising in particular is a very scattergun medium. The images it portrays goes out to everybody. If an image is on a billboard, everybody who walks past that billboard will see it, not simply the customers to whom that product or service have been targeted. So some of the criticism of advertising is that it creates demand amongst everybody, even though only a certain number of consumers will be able to, for example, afford a product. And so when we talk about marketing as the creation of satisfaction of consumers, well, advertising has the potential to create demand amongst many consumers who may not be able to afford a product. And that will simply create dissatisfaction rather than satisfaction. But the satisfaction that's created by the consumers who do consume and enjoy a product is never really weighed up against the dissatisfaction of those consumers who are made to desire a product but maybe are not able to afford it and ultimately enjoy it. In terms of the process of marketing communications, if you pick up any conventional marketing communications textbook or marketing textbook, you'll tend to find a model like this one behind me, which takes a view of communication very much inherited from the world of physics, thinking of communication as a process of transmitting information. So the marketer plays a role as the sender who is transmitting a message that is received and decoded and understood and hopefully acted upon by the consumer. It's a very linear approach to communication. It very much frames communication as nothing much more than an information transmission process. It sees the marketing message that the marketer wants to put across as a form of magic bullet that will be sent across to the consumer and hopefully will motivate them to behave in the way the marketer wants them to. Today we're seeing really more modern, more social ideas about marketing communications and how it works, viewing marketing communications as much more of a social process, that it's about interacting with consumers, it's about building relations with them, it's about interacting with them backwards and forwards, not simply about passing information across to them. And really it's beginning to frame within notions of sustainability marketing communications as more like a conversation that both the marketer and the consumer are involved with and who are able to not just pass information between one another, but perhaps develop a shared understanding and some kind of long-term relationship. A sustainability marketing communication campaign needs to be managed. So the aims of the campaign need to be set before media is chosen and the campaign implemented and assessed. So if we begin by thinking about communication aims, there are a range of different aims that a particular communication campaign can address. So a campaign might seek to generate awareness, for example, about a particular sustainability solution or about perhaps a particular sustainability issue that a good product or a service is linked to. A campaign might seek to inform consumers about a particular product or a particular technology or a particular set of sustainability issues and how they relate to a particular product or service. So if we take, for example, the Toyota Prius when it was launched in the United States, the company spent 2 years on an information and advertising campaign to really get the American consumer to understand the technology, understand why hybrid cars offered a more sustainable approach to personal transport, and really get the consumer used to the notion of a hybrid car, why it might be desirable, why it might be effective, why it might be an acceptable type of technology for them to use. So really a very long campaign trying to build information, awareness, acceptance, and also partly to persuade the consumer that it was an attractive type of product to use, and also reassure them that it was a technology that would work, even though it was quite different to the type of technology that customers were used to having in their cars. Campaigns can try and be persuasive, they can try and make us feel attracted to particular products and services. The example you can see there from Oxfam promoting fair trade food, and particularly with fair trade chocolate there, and a stack of very attractive looking chocolate, and a description of how delicious it is, along with some details about how purchasing fair trade produce is very good in terms of providing a living wage to the people in producer countries. So it's there to motivate, interest, inform consumers about the particular product and get them involved. Some types of marketing media in particular look to motivate and reward consumers. So if we think about sales promotion as an approach to marketing communications, sales promotion typically offers customers something extra, some better value offer, So when we see a 2 for the price of 1 type offer, for example, that's trying to motivate us to perhaps try a brand or a product or a type of service that we've never used before, and really trying to get us motivated as consumers by rewarding us. So for example, Lenovo, the computer manufacturer, when they were looking to get consumers to recycle old computers, they offered a range of gift vouchers to consumers for returning old electronic products, not just computers, a whole range of used electronic goods. They gave them gift vouchers based on the residual value of those products. So again, motivating consumers and rewarding them. And finally, marketing communications campaigns can try and build connections with consumers and really build relationships with them. And that's something we've seen particularly on the online environment. We've seen companies like Patagonia, for example, Timberland, developing really online communities, trying to get their consumers to come together online, share and interact with the brand and really form some type of a sense of community. And when we look at the One Water case in episode 3, you'll see an example of a company selling a very simple item. I mean, water is a very, very simple product and difficult maybe to get consumers very enthused about and interacting with. But through a sophisticated website, One Water managed to get a sense of community behind the product and behind the good it was doing in Africa through its cause-related marketing campaign. So in terms of the things that companies might want to achieve through its marketing communications, it will typically be a mixture of those aims. So one campaign might look to inform and reassure and motivate and build a relationship with consumers. And the types of communications media that a company will use will often reflect the type of aim that a campaign is leading on. So if you want to generate awareness of a particular product or technology, advertising might be a very good way of doing it because you can reach a large number of consumers at one time. If the key aim is to inform them, help them understand a product or a sustainability issue, then a labelling approach might be best to try and give consumers a large amount of detail about the product through product labelling. If you're looking to motivate and reward consumers, then a sales promotional campaign might be a good approach. And if you're looking to build relationships, then an online element of the marketing campaign might be the key to achieving that. In terms of marketing media, those aims will drive the choice of media, but it's important, I think, for companies to remember that marketing communications is not just about what you choose to communicate to the customer. In practice, everything communicates. So the price you charge for your product or your service, that communicates something to the customer. The name that you give to your brand communicates something. Where your product is available in terms of distribution channels, again, communicates something to the customer. Even the nature of the corporate headquarters will say something to outside stakeholders about the nature of the company and its values and what's important to it. So it's very important to remember that a company is communicating all the time, not just when it's trying to through deliberate marketing communications campaigns. In terms of the type of media that companies can use, the ones we tend to think of most readily in marketing communications are advertising, which is probably the highest profile one. Also sales promotion, which is really of equal, in some markets, greater size compared to above the line advertising. Also direct mail that we tend to get through our letterboxes, trying to again interest us in particular products and services. And finally, public relations, although public relations often is more commonly used at the corporate brand level rather than the product brand level. Some of those media tend to be particularly suitable for sustainability marketing more than others, and some have perhaps received particular criticism. Sales promotion, for example, by its tendency to go for offers like buy one, get one free, has been accused of really encouraging overconsumption. And it's interesting that some companies like Tesco, for example, the retailer, have moved towards a buy one, get another one later free offer to try and spread out that consumption, to try and avoid accusations of overconsumption. The direct mail industry really has had a problem with the sustainability agenda because of the concept of junk mail. The idea that most direct mail that comes through our letterbox is not well targeted, we're not really very interested in it, we mostly end up throwing it away, so it's not really a very good use of marketing resources or physical resources. So what we've seen is marketing companies trying to make their direct mail much more clearly targeted, and also companies like, for example, ING Direct, the financial services company, having a carbon offset program to say that they will offset the carbon that's used in developing and delivering their direct mail shots. Another important form of marketing communications is actually through people. Selling is something that we tend to associate more with industrial marketing very often than consumer marketing, but there are many markets where a selling effort is quite important, particularly very large purchases, expensive, one-off purchases, things like buying a house or buying a car is something where consumers often feel a need for help, advice, explanation from salespeople. Similarly, markets like clothing, for example, and cosmetics, often there's a need for that personal advice from a salesperson rather than just relying on media like advertising and sales promotion. So selling is very important really to ensure that sales staff understand the sustainability issues that are linked to a particular product or service, and really to help consumers through those processes of buying perhaps a passively heated house or a hybrid car, which might be quite unfamiliar to them. Thirdly, point of sale and labelling are very important media, particularly because they operate in the stores, the point where customers are making choices, looking to buy particular products, and they can be very effective in getting that information to consumers, really at a moment when they're able to act upon it and make particular decisions. And in fact, we'll look more about labelling as a particular way of influencing customers more in the next episode. Finally, online channels are becoming increasingly important in all forms of market. And we'll look a little more in this episode about how and why online marketing communications is becoming very important for sustainability brands to build relationships and communicate effectively with their consumers. Ultimately, what companies will adopt is a mix of different communication methods. They might have more invested in, for example, advertising, or perhaps more in selling, depending on the nature of the market. But really for the company, it's a question of getting the right mixture of media for the particular product or service that they're seeking to market. I mentioned earlier that advertising was the most prevalent, the most obvious marketing communications medium that people tend to associate with the discipline of marketing. And there are a variety of types of advertising that companies can employ. We tend to often think most about TV advertising, but there's also radio, magazines and print advertising, direct mail advertising, and increasingly these days online advertising, either through computers, through mobile phones, and through media like that. Advertising is one of those media that is really a scattergun type of medium. It puts the whole message out to everybody. The same message reaches every single consumer. There's no sense of customization or making the message fit the particular consumer that you're trying to reach. It's also a medium that you'll find all around us. It's not just in our television channels and programs and on the radio stations or on the pages of our magazines. If you walk out of your door and look around your city, you'll find advertising images all around you through billboards, on the sides of buses and trucks, and other types of outside facilities like that. Companies' use of outside advertising like billboards has become so commonplace we really accept it. We see it as part of our cities, part of our lives, part of the world around us. And yet in some places that idea is becoming challenged. In 2007 in Sao Paulo in Brazil, the local mayor decided that he would pass a bill that was called the Clean City Law, tackling all forms of pollution to try and clean the city up. And included within that was a measure to reduce visual pollution, which included removing all the 15,000 advertising billboards that were there in the city. Now, in many ways, the business community there were horrified, the idea that a whole advertising medium would be taken away from them. They wouldn't be able to use poster advertising after that. But actually 70% of the local population gave their approval to the measure. They said they were pleased to have a city without advertising hoardings everywhere. And in fact, the measure also raised $8 million in its first year in fines for those companies that transgressed. So advertising is all around us, but it doesn't necessarily have to be accepted as part of the world that we live in, just as a matter of fact. Other types of media that we'll see, if we go shopping, we will tend to walk into a store and you'll see a range of displays and merchandising efforts on the part of the retailers and also the part of particular brands to try and influence us and engage us with their products and services. So you might walk into a store and be accosted by somebody dressed as a banana, trying to interest you in fair trade bananas and the whole idea about fair trade, and wanting to hand you a leaflet to inform you about the products and the issues behind them. Also displays, you might find displays of products with, again, leaflets, with eye-catching images, really to try and get you in store to take some notice of and to get interested in a particular product or service or issue. It tends to be very important in areas like food and drink retailing and clothes retailing in particular, trying to actually engage people in stores through displays and merchandising efforts. Also labelling, as we mentioned, labelling is a very important type of a medium in terms of getting across information about customers and also building trust with them. That consumers are often very reassured by seeing information on a label, and we'll take a more in-depth look at labelling in the next episode. Finally, there can also be events, things like trade shows, and when we look at One Water, we'll see how the beginnings of their marketing campaign really depended on using things like events to get the brand recognised and visible to people. And often we're seeing particular events based around sustainability issues. So in Austria, for example, retailers there, the government, NGOs come together for every year for a sustainability week, where there are live events in stores and other places to try and get consumers interested in more sustainable lifestyles and more sustainable goods and services. In the UK, we have a Fair Trade Fortnight every year, again, where retailers promote fair trade goods in particular. So a lot of in-store displays and events in stores to try and get people interested in fair trade goods and services. And it's part really of a move towards more experiential marketing very often, that companies are now trying to engage with consumers, not just by this idea of providing information and images to them to engage with them, but also giving them some kind of experience. And if you walk into a shopping mall, you might find yourself invited to play a virtual reality game based around a brand, or sample a particular product, or in some way take part in some kind of event which is linked into the product or the sustainability issues to which it's connected. And that very much gives that opportunity for two-way engagement that marketers today are looking for. So I mentioned that the new frontier for sustainability marketing communications, and really marketing communications in general, is online. The online environment becoming very important, very rapidly expanding. And it's interesting for sustainability marketing because it can give new, small, emerging brands an opportunity to communicate with consumers really that's affordable and that can put them on a level playing field with large established brands. And we'll see in the case study in episode 3 where One Water used online media very effectively to reach its customers and also to compete with some very well established brands. When companies began using online media, it was very much all about websites to begin with, and those websites were often relatively passive affairs. It was typically the corporate brochure and other media and other marketing information was sort of put onto the website so that customers could access them. But that again was really not very interactive and not very sophisticated. Over the last 20 years or so, it's become increasingly sophisticated in the way that companies put websites together. And the advantage in a website is that the consumer is very much in charge of the communication. The consumer navigates the website as they want. So it allows customers to kind of go to the information they want and for companies to make a wide range of information available to them. So Unilever, for example, set up a very sophisticated website to allow customers to explore what goes into a detergent, how it's made, right down to the chemicals that were involved, so that anybody just from the concerned purchaser worried about maybe something like skin allergies, right down to the A-level chemistry student who wants to find out how the detergent works on a very molecular level, could find something on that website to really understand exactly how the product works. So the website can supply a lot of detail for consumers, and it can also be used to interact with consumers to try and help form that type of community. And some brands like, for example, Patagonia, developed its Footprint Chronicles, which provided the whole story of the product, how their products and how they're made, all the sustainability impacts, so that customers coming to the website can find out everything about it. Similarly, Follow Fish, a relatively small brand in the frozen fish market, developed smart codes on their packaging so that customers could go to the website by using things like smartphones to find out really about the fish, where it comes from, and the sustainability impacts involved in all the different aspects of the fish's production and distribution. Companies are also moving towards having blogs online. Now, blogs are, again, a relatively unidirectional way of communicating with companies, but some of them allow for at least companies to build a relationship by telling stories to their consumers. So, for example, Patagonia developed its Cleanest Line blog that allowed consumers really to follow some of the issues of the company and get involved with them. So online is really where a great deal of new and innovative developments are taking place in marketing communication. It isn't necessarily a replacement for conventional marketing media, and what we're seeing is often a connection between them. So when you see the case study of One Water, for example, they would use things like smart codes on their poster advertising and other forms of advertising that would take consumers who were interested directly to the website to find out more about the brand and to help get involved in that community that they were seeking to build online and to find out more about the brand as a whole. So that's giving you an introduction really to the type of media that sustainability marketers can use and some of the increasingly imaginative ways in which brands can try and connect with and communicate with and build a relationship with its customers. So in terms of reviewing this session, you might want to think about the following questions. Firstly, why is marketing communication so often the focus of critical attacks on marketing as a field? Secondly, what different marketing aims can marketing communication campaigns try to address? And finally, how might those emerging social media technologies help companies, particularly new and innovative, sustainability-orientated companies, to compete in the marketplace with their well-established competitors? In terms of references for this session, we'd recommend Chapter 8 of our book, Sustainability Marketing, of course, which covers a wide range of the points that I've covered here. Also, I'd recommend the article by Lantos, Advertising, Looking Glass or Moulder of the Masses, which reviews many of the debates about marketing as a mirror of society that's relatively harmless, or as a distorted mirror in which society is shaped maybe to its detriment. And then finally, a United Nations Environment Programme report, Talk the Walk, Advancing Sustainable Lifestyles Through Marketing Communications, which looks at a whole range of different ways that companies can use marketing communications media to try and not just promote particular goods and services, but also help customers to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle. So thank you very much for listening, and bye for now.